Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm Jesse with Living Creek Community Pools, and we're here at the Gill Farm, at the Gill Farm tract here. This is a wonderful urban farm here in Berkeley, California. And we're talking with David. David, how do you pronounce your name?
Grafrath.
Yeah. We're talking with David Grafrath, and they have created something very, very special indeed. You have quite a bit of acreage here. I would say around maybe a quarter of an acre or so.
Oh, it's actually 1.5.
1.5?
Yeah, just sort of 1.5. We don't have too much happening in the margins over there. We have like a meeting area, and then this side we have herbal mandala with herbal medicinal plants from around the world. And then over here we have a bit of a permaculture installation, which is the first stage of it. So we planted fava beans into a large hugelkultur bed, which making it so that all of the plant matter can decompose and be very water retentive. So, and then this side we have what's thought of as sort of traditional urban, or actually it's organic agriculture. So, we first tilled the soil about a year ago here, and then that was the initiation for this space specifically. Last year we grew 10,000 pounds of produce and gave it away. It was all available to the people who work the land. And then also we passed it out to soup kitchens and
to people in modest circumstances.
Our first year actually, when we were on in 2012, we were over there. We occupied for 3 weeks and planted a full acre. We cleared, tilled, and planted a full acre in one day. That was with 200 people with an occupation. And then we filled out the half of the north field on that side, which is about 3.5 acres over the course of 3 weeks. Eventually, many of the plants were plowed and the permaculture garden was destroyed, as well as the seed-saving garden. But there were some rows that were left, so we did illegal harvesting of vegetables during the summertime. And we came on for 10 harvests, all overseen by the police. And we took all of that produce, which was about 1.5 tons or so by my reckoning, and gave that all away to people in West Oakland, in Richmond, and folks of lesser means in Berkeley. So, yeah.
Well, my question is just, I know it's a rather complicated history, but if you could summarize, basically the land itself was owned by the University of California here at Berkeley. So just in very, very brief abstract terms, if you could tell us how it was acquired or transformed into an urban farm.
Yeah, it was through direct resistance and struggle.
Through direct resistance and struggle.
Yeah, I mean, like when we initiated the occupation, we came on with 10,000 plants. You know, and
10,000 plants.
Yeah, yeah. So we seeded them and they grew, and then we came on with 2 truckloads of compost to 200 people as well as 10,000 plants. So that was on April 22nd, Earth Day, actually in 2012.
2012?
Yeah, we had a march to the site. And then we were here, we occupied for 3 weeks, but again, that first day, like we brought out 2 rototillers and we cleared a full acre, of mustard that was actually overgrown. And then we planted all the plants that we planted that day. We started progressing south to north with our planting plan. So we were able to plant a great deal because of the community support. 2 or 3, they turned off the water, and then we had people from the community actually donate water. 3 water tanks showed up, and then we moved water onto site.
People donated water?
Yeah, in the neighborhood. Yeah, they came by and they liked what we were doing. They were very moved, so they said, we want to provide water for you. So we would go over to someone's house and fill up a 255-gallon water container, which it fits in the back of the truck. And then we'd bring it in, and then either bring it in over there and empty it, move it, or we had to take it to the gate and move it over bucket by bucket because we were being resisted by the police.
The university had other plans for this land, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What did they want to do with it?
Well, here they wanted to build ball fields first off, and then they wanted to turn it into condominiums, as far as I can understand.
Turn it into condominiums.
Yeah, but the whole area, the 20 acres, is still at risk because the area south of the creek is an area that is still at risk for development. They still want to build on it. So we still are fighting for the full 20 acres. I feel like that is exactly what is necessary at these times when we have massive amounts of urbanization here in the East Bay, but very little farmland or open space. So for us, it's just as important to preserve the south side of the creek as the north. So one of the things that was really remarkable was Whole Foods was the tenant that was going to move in 2012. And they were going to move in right over there. They were going to cut down a whole bunch of trees, lay flat a whole bunch of area, and then they were going to create a parking lot and a, you know, sort of like strip mall. So, and that was all going to happen. That was like done. So we went on and occupied for 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden, everybody from the community who had been upset with the direction of the Gill tract was able to come out and see that you could use the space for something else. And so it became a source of genuine inspiration. So those 3 weeks actually fueled us to where we are today. So because we went back on for an occupation in 2013, the Gill Altieri last year, in 2013 in the fall, allowed 40 community members to take part in a farming project over there. And then the next season, which was last spring, we started here. We did this whole area, which is about half of the acre and a half, and then we have it's about 2/3, and then the third over here we saved for the fall, and we planted last fall. So, and again, that the herbal mandala of herbs and medicinal plants from around the world for me is very special. You know, like it's an amazing gift that we were able to have something that is of such horticultural richness. Diversity.
If you could explain that, so you're saying you have a mandala of healing and medicinal plants from all over the world.
Yes.
If you could name some of them, for example.
Well, we have over there mullein, which is one, which is it's a it grows pretty well around here, but you can use that if you dry it, chop it up, you can use it for respiratory problems. So that's one. So there's. I'm trying to see from here. So there's a clary sage, which is a great pollinator and attracts a lot of beneficial insects.
Absolutely.
There's a lavender and a rosemary plant, which is over there, so people can come by and harvest a little bit for their cooking. You know, so and all of those things are getting established, and once they get established, they'll be a real asset to the community when people can come in and harvest either parts of the plant or eventually the roots once they get well.
I mean, that's such a very special thing to simply walk into a community garden in Berkeley and to harvest medicinal plants, healing plants. That is so special indeed. So I mean, that's very inspiring. It's very heartening. So perhaps if we could walk around a bit, you could show us a bit around.
So these are all collard greens here, and again, these are all public. So if you wanted to, you could pick some of these. So these are kind of multi-visible. So let's have this one. I'll leave that one to you.
Oh, that's so kind of you.
So there's plenty more out of the front.
Look how incredibly vibrant and healthy this is. That's so very, very special. Collard green, just filled with vitamin A and with all sorts of healing and beneficial properties, including antioxidants. Imagine making a green drink with this.
You got it. Yeah, and I love to actually when I work with them, what I'll do is I'll take the leaves and hold on here, and then you pull through, and then you get all of the leaf matter with the stem not attached.
Beautiful.
And then at that point you can ball it up and chop it pretty well. And I like it in a stir fry actually with a little bit of garlic and a little bit of lemon, a little bit of tamari, actually, and sesame seeds. Yeah,
wonderful
stuff.
What do you like around here? It looks like carrots. It looks like carrots to me.
Yeah, they look like carrots to me. So I didn't plant them, but I would definitely guess that these are carrots.
They're carrots. How wonderful.
Yeah, these look like, I'm guessing these are dragon carrots. You can see a little bit of purple on top. So they're really delicious, tender carrots.
So instead of just a red carrot, it's a multicolored carrot.
Oh yeah. It's some of my favorites because I don't know if you've ever had the dragon carrot or the scarlet dance or the yellow carrots. They're just so tasty, and when you get them when they're relatively young, and and especially if you keep the stems on, they keep their freshness actually. One thing I found out recently was that if you have a carrot and you pull it out of the ground, or you get a carrot from the store and it still has the stem on it, it's actually still alive. It's actually still growing, so it's still vibrant. Whereas if you cut the stem off, then all of a sudden it starts getting very, very hard, very woody. So if you keep the stems on and then you cut it when you actually use the carrot, then it's like very soft. It's very tender.
Somebody wants to join the garden. How does that happen?
They show up.
They just show up. And suppose that they don't know the first thing about gardening or horticulture.
No problem. Yeah, no, this whole area. Yeah, this whole area is a learning garden.
It's a learning garden.
It's actually a learning farm. I like to be specific because I've worked in community gardens and they're amazing for what they are, but the scale is never as impressive as it is on a farm. Like it is a real difference when you can grow like 300 kale plants and it doesn't take over everything in your garden. You know, like if you did that in a community garden, you wouldn't have any space for anything.
Right, exactly.
We can grow 300 kale plants here and 100 bok choy and 100 mizuna. Last year the mizuna was amazing. The mustard, the curly mustard is still giving, you know, beautiful leaves. So all of that.
Also, when you come into harvest, you know, you can harvest whatever you like. You don't have your own little plot that you have to harvest from.
Right,
so
exactly.
So you have access to everything
To
that's
everything.
growing here.
That's so inspiring. That's so beautiful.
Right, and there's no limitation to where you live, anywhere in the East, but anywhere.
Oh, so you know, someone can, or somebody passing through could just come here and devote a couple days. And,
They do. They do.
Or just an hour.
They do.
Or just an hour.
People do.
Oh.
Come on by and, like, you know, if you'd like to do.
Just passing through.
Yeah, if you'd like to do some work. This is our first year here.
Oh, this is your first year here?
Yeah. We haven't even been on the ground here more than 365 days. And we've taken an acre and a half. We completely filled it out. We have bird netting. We have stakes in the ground to keep the bird netting up. We have all of the rows cultivated. Basically, our entire space here, an acre and a half, we filled in 1 year, which is one of the reasons why we're excited about trying to encourage the university to expand this program. You know, we actually want to work with another 2 acres on the north side here. And for me personally, I would love it if we could have it be focused a little bit more on perennials, but mostly just a little bit more on the plants that are more turkey resistant.
Yeah.
Because right now, in order to have like all this kale and chard, we actually need the bird netting.
Sure.
Because otherwise the turkeys are going to come in and eat it down to the ground and be very happy turkeys, which is great. But you don't have to do that like squashes or tomatoes or some of the other other plants that you can grow on an area are actually turkey resistant. Like they're not going to come in and eat a squash plant. You know, or they might get some, but they don't really eat all of them. We harvested something like 6,000 pounds or something like that of squash last summer. You know, and again, all of that just given away.
Okay. Well, that is so inspiring. So my other question is, so basically, what you have here, an entire acre and a quarter of land here under cultivation. That
About
is,
an acre and a half, yeah.
That's so good. And just what sort of membership? Basically, what sort of? I know there are always people passing through, but in general, what you know, just how many people, more or less, are working on the land?
Okay, that's a great question. So I think if I were to say so, I'd probably say 5 to 8 or so are folks who are here like at least once a week.
Okay, so you have a central core of 5 to 8 people, and then you have people who you know, who are sort of in and out, coming along and so forth.
Yeah, like yourself, Jesse. You know, like you are here, we are welcoming you as a friend, as a brother. You know? So, but it's really that sense I feel of having an ability for the community to engage with the space, and also having it so that it's steady enough that, you know, you don't have, for instance, like you know, like you would come, let's say that you were malicious, Jesse. I know that you're not, but let's say that you were, and you said, you know what, I want to just like harvest all this chard, and I just want the baby chard because I like the baby chard. And you come and you clear like half a row. Well, you know, like that's not helpful for everybody else. Generally, people don't have that poor manners, but I use it as an extreme example. You know, so it helps to have something of a guiding hand, a stewardship.
A sort of guiding hand, a stewardship. But the basic rule, if somebody comes here and works, they can just harvest. As they please, within limits, of course.
Sure.
Which is very, very different from your average community garden. Just as the woman was saying, there you have private plots, and a private plot is a private plot. Whereas here, it's a collective, it's communal, and people simply harvest, as I understand it, according to their consciences, and so forth. So that's a very, very special thing. What are the implications of this experiment, because it is an experiment, it's a great experiment. What are the implications of this for these United States of America, which is going in a very, very different direction, I think you will agree? What are the implications for more and more urban gardenings in major cities everywhere? What are the implications for Detroit?
Sure.
my favorite place, or Camden, New Jersey, another favorite place.
Sure.
You know, because all of these places are simply lunar landscapes right now.
Yeah.
So what's the possibility of turning these around? These, let's admit, or let's agree, in the case of Detroit and both Camden, you have vast tracts of land which are just vacant and just abandoned.
You got it.
What are you telling us about what can be done now?
Well, it's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking it. And I think that actually your question is the central question of our times. Like, I think that with over half of the world's population living in cities, we have to try and figure out how cities can be more able to be resilient, to be able to be self-sufficient to the extent that they can. And when you have soils that are damaged and toxic, then you make it so that the only thing that will thrive there are things that are depleted and toxic. So my vision for Oakland, and also for the wider industrialized world, is what I feel is actually just a continuation of a direction that's already been going in, which is that in the last 20 years there's been groundbreaking research on different types of soil remediation, using microbes, using plants, using mushrooms, being able to work with heavy toxins, being able to just renew soils to a former healthy state. You know, and so for me, the news is just getting out there right now that this stuff is really viable. There are community groups that are actually doing arsenic remediation. We have an arsenic remediation program here in Berkeley, actually, at the Santa Fe right-of-way, where they're actually using Chinese brake ferns to pull arsenic out of the soil, and then they're disposing of the Chinese brake ferns as hazardous waste, you know, which it is. You're creating another sacrifice zone, but you're also trying to make it so that it's a little bit more balanced, you know. And this is, again, just a reality. It's not like, okay, well, you know, you can wave a wand and all of the heavy metals in urban landscapes are going to disappear. No, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take actually years of effort and cultivation of plants, of mushrooms, and of microbes in the soil to be able to regenerate those soils. So,
what about lead contamination?
Yeah, here in Oakland, actually, they're doing an amazing lead remediation program using fish phosphate. So,
using fish phosphate, what does that have to? How does that work?
What it does is it immobilizes the lead in the soil.
It immobilizes the lead.
Yeah. So there's different ways that you can deal with lead, and there's different types of lead. Some of it you can keep in the ground, and just keeping it in the ground is enough so that you can grow things around it, and you can actually have it not be bioavailable. Other kinds you want to try and get out. So depending on your extraction type, you could use something like an acacia tree, which has deep, fast-growing roots. They can actually get further down into the root structure, and then also use something like sunflower, which has a medium-sized taproot, to be able to access different horizons within the soil. Because if you have lead that's been dumping onto a landscape for 50 years, it's going to accumulate and it's going to start going down. One of the most toxic areas is actually gas stations. When gas stations are actually decommissioned, you have basically like a toxic waste land.
Absolutely.
You know, so to be able to remediate that, it actually takes years of work and directly with the soil. You know, one way you can do it, which is an industrial way, which I don't approve of, but you can actually take all the soil, and some folks do this, take all the soil, you scoop it out, and then you move it as toxic waste to a landfill, and then you bring in quote-unquote fresh soil. Now, that's
pretty drastic.
Right. I mean, like, that is not my solution. It might be a solution, though, honestly, for some landscapes. You might not be able to remediate all the lead out of the soil, but you can really work with the existing lead levels. You can bring them down. You can try and make it so that it's actually more habitable. And to the extent that you can work with all the heavy metals and toxins, and that people have plants that actually can work with different toxins right now, that to me is where we're going with all this. You know, to actually create healthy soils through microbial growth, through mushroom growth, and through plants.
Microbial growth, mushroom growth, and the plants. What do mushrooms have to do with heavy metals and ameliorating the soil?
Well, mushrooms are really fascinating. There's some of the most diverse research has actually gone into mushrooms in the last 20 years. Paul Stamets is very famous for that. Mycelium Running is his big book. And it's very accessible, it's very readable. And what he talks about in that is what they've also been doing down in Ecuador with the Amazon Micro Renewal Project. And what they do is they take different spawns of oyster mushroom, find spawns that are actually able to break the hydrocarbon bonds within the oil, and then they self-select them to get the healthiest species of mushroom, so that by the end of a trial they have one that's like really, really able to take it up, and then they can take the mushrooms and then they can send them somewhere else. But they're dealing with like pools of oil in Ecuador, you know, like pools of oil like in the ground, you know, and these are like nearby communities, and there's just like the wreckage that was left by Chevron and Shell. And I mean, like it's there, it's in Nigeria, where these practices have got to actually, you know, they actually have grassroots initiatives that are actually supporting this stuff. So to me, that's what we can do here in the United States as well. I mean, like I feel like they're actually the ones who are doing the frontline stuff. Like they're the ones who are doing the most dynamic research on the planet right now. You know?
That is so inspiring. One of the mightiest thinkers who ever lived said that mankind never sets itself a problem that it cannot solve. So, I mean, here you have heavily polluted urban landscapes, and yet even there, even in the midst of the abominations that have been committed in urban areas against nature, even there is hope. Hope for remediation and for renewal, and that's very, very inspiring indeed. You know, I just want to get back to one thing that I'm very impressed with.
Sure.
So in my humble understanding of the way the garden works, most anyone can simply appear, can simply come along and do a few hours work and walk home with an abundance of living greens, vegetables, and perhaps in the season, perhaps of a few tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, squash, celery, radishes, or whatever. Is that the way it works, more or less?
As far as I could tell, we had about at least 1,000 or 2,000 pounds of tomatoes last year, and probably about 1,000 pounds of peppers. And that's just a guess. Like there's an actual log where we have keep track of that stuff. But we planted 2 full rows of peppers, about 3 or 4 full rows of tomatoes, all of them short season, all of them well acclimated to the Berkeley environment. We don't have like long summers here, so we can't grow like a really large tomato like a beefsteak, so it's like mid and early season tomatoes, cherry tomatoes and things like that. And we had an abundance of them. We had more tomatoes than we knew what to do with. And we could, I mean, like one of our folks was giving away tomatoes over in the middle of San Pablo on the traffic median, like actually like handing out tomatoes to the folks.
You know, you had so much you were actually handing them out and giving them away.
Well, that's what's happening right now over at the farm stand. That's why John couldn't join us for the interview, is because he actually needed to get out there and start moving the produce out to the people, you know?
That's very, very inspiring indeed. And of course, and now with a year or more of experience behind you, I'm sure that this season's crop, which I'm sure you're already working on and planning, is even going to be more abundant.
Yeah, my real excitement for this year is actually encouraging the University of California, Berkeley, and the existing community gardens and community projects, urban farming projects, which are all around the East Bay, to actually start offering their services to Oakland and abandoned and vacant lots. I would like us to try to initiate soil remediation, toxic remediations within damaged landscapes in Oakland, and to actually provide people for food for people this year. There's a goal that Miguel Altieri put down, and to me it's a challenge. He said that if the available vacant land, public land in Oakland was used, that you could feed 500,000 people 100 pounds of food a year. Now to me, that is a challenge, and I would love to accept that challenge.
500,000 people?
Yeah, because that's how much vacant land there is, underused land. And so when you take something like the farm and you have this as an initial test run, which I think is phenomenally successful, you know, like 10,000 pounds of produce in a very small amount of acreage. To me,
and it was the first year. You were just getting started.
Well, actually, that was like year, let's see, 2014. That would have been year 3-ish, because we were on in 2012 and then 2014.
But it's going to be even more important, because now during all this time, because by fertilizing, by bringing in natural fertilizer, you're making the soil all the more abundant. You know, you're making the soil all the more fertile. You know, so each harvest, or the harvest that you can look forward in the future, will be even more abundant and even more plentiful.
Yeah.
So
well, there was these seeds over here that are at the edge of the bed. Those are all pollinator attractors. They're still around after about a year. And we saved seeds from those last fall. We'll be able to replant them this year. And all of the seeds that are going to be able to offer themselves to our project here are actually seeds that will be adapted then to this climate, this particular biozone, like right here, you know.
You know, and the extraordinary thing is that prior to this land was used for biotech.
Yeah.
For genetic modification. And now what you're doing is growing your own seeds, as farmers have done for millennia, adapting the plants and seeds that you're growing here to this particular soil and to this particular microclimate. That's very, very. So basically, what you're doing is the absolute antithesis of what the biotech people, what the biotech people were doing on this land prior to your advent here.
It's partially true. So one of the things that I love about the Gill track is that that when you look at the history of the Gill track, you see the history of different people's visions for what they feel humanity needs, actually. Some of the most amazing research on the planet happened here and at UC Riverside in agroecology in the 50s and 60s.
In the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and what happened here is at a time when DDT was everywhere, when better living was through chemistry, and they were spraying everything, and finally the bald eagle was starting to have its shells be weakened, and that was when everybody paid attention, And I'm glad that they did, but one of the things that really helped turn things around was the research that happened here was they found that using biological control, using plants, using flowers, that if you actually have flowers in a garden, you don't have to spray as many pesticides because you're attracting the beneficial insects that are actually going to be able to be in the soil, you're attracting pollinators, you're making a more biodiverse area. You're still using it for human good, you still are. You're still growing crops, it's still not a forest, but you're trying to lessen the impact. And the result of that was that they actually reduced the amount of pesticide use within California by something like half or something like that, which to me is like...
And it all started right here.
This was one of them. UC Riverside was the other spot. So it's one of these things where it means that half the amount of poisons for the last 40 years that could have been being sprayed in California haven't been sprayed because of the research that happened here.
How exciting. But then after that, it sort of went the other way.
Sure. Yeah. What happened in the 90s was, at the end of the 90s, there was a pitch to actually make this into where we are now, which is the Bay Area Center for Urban Agriculture. And that was a proposal that was backed by 35 NGOs in the East Bay area and in the Bay Area. Very supported, and the university courted that until the last minute and then basically said, no thanks, don't call us, we'll call you. And they told everybody to get lost. And then at that point, they signed the deal with Novartis to have the corn research. Now, it's not genetic, it's not GMO corn, because if it was GMO corn, they'd have to have a lot of security. They'd actually have to have guards guarding the plants. Crazy for me, but that's the way it is. But what they do is they do basic genetic research. There is the way that they term it. And like I said before, the basic genetic research that happens here on the Gill track is all precursors for GMO research. It all feeds into GMO research, and it doesn't have any applicability, or maybe it has a 1 in 500 applicability for organic agriculture. So if you want to talk about the shift between lessening the amount of pesticides that the world uses on its crops, or creating something that is incredibly pesticide needy, incredibly pesticide resistant, so you basically have to have a duel between whether or not you can grow your corn and not poison it enough to actually be able to harvest it and eat it, or feed it to cattle, or you could have something that has a much less dramatic impact on the land, does not create dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico, etc.
To me, it's very instructive how the pendulum has switched back, in several different directions.
Yeah.
And now it has gone into a life affirmative direction once again. That's very, very impressive indeed. It shows you how at the grassroots level we are dealing with the irrepressible, which despite the slabs of concrete everywhere, spiritual, mental, and whatever, still the grass breaks through. And that's the hope. I must say, David, that this has been very, very inspiring indeed. And it shows you that with focus and concentration and focus, volition, and concentration, you can build wonders on the surface of this American earth. So I think this is inspiring for all of us, and I hope that our readers and viewers out there will be encouraged and think about doing some such thing in their own communities everywhere. So thank you so very much indeed.
You're welcome.